So I focus less on leverage points these days than on what I call well, not I, what the field of complexity science calls coherence. And so coherence is comes out of a study of fractals. It comes out of the way that there are self-similar patterns in nature and in society. And I write a lot about this in my book. It's hard to do it justice in a minute or two, but I these days look at our polycrisis as the manifestation of a battle between two sets of fractals. One fractal I call, actually, I borrow these words from the eco theologian Thomas Berry, the collection of objects worldview. That's words Thomas Berry coined, but that worldview brings us not just environmental devastation, but white supremacy and patriarchy. It says that, I matter and you're an object that I can use toward my own comfort, safety, well being, assumed well being. There's another fractal pattern in the world, and I call this one the web of relationships, which says, I'm sacred and special and unique, and so are you, and so is everyone else. And that the way we are safe is by, and make it through this, is by honoring and working with that mutuality and reciprocity. So the thing about that is, if you buy that, and you'll have to think about it a lot, to decide if you buy that analysis, but if you do, every moment, every choice in your day, you have those 2 patterns, right? I have a small company. In our staff meeting, am I gonna be the boss who tells everyone what to do toward my own reputation and benefit? Or am I a collaborative leader who tries to nurture everyone? 2 patterns, I get to choose where to put my energy, and I don't have to be the president of the World Bank, right, to take agency based on this pattern. When I do that, I also build a little tiny bit of muscle memory, the way that athletes visualize and practice. So there'll be a day, and I don't actually know when, it won't be staff meeting, but it will be a consequential moment where I will have, the ear of a leader or something that matters. Have I practiced how to be a collaborative leader? Why should I have, every staff meeting for a decade? I can practice it in my marriage. I can practice it in my policy work. So I think we got here with a question about like how do people find their place to act? All you have to do, in my experience, as I have this frame now, and I thank all the complexity thinkers who give me the language for it, um, is live your life. And your life is going to present you because it is an epic battle on this planet, those 2 patterns. Which one do you stand against and disrupt, and which one do you try to add your little tiny drop of steering and energy toward?
Yeah, beautiful. There may be differences here that we don't have time to explore, but what's coming to mind is the theologian Martin Buber's I thou relationship.
If you're familiar with, yeah, I think that's another person, trying to capture that same sense, and it's not new in the planet. I mean, this has been a struggle, generational, hundreds of years at this point. And we really should also acknowledge, the cultures and the especially indigenous cultures that are the stewards and, are still living in intact cultures out of those principles of reciprocity and mutuality. Um, so I just want to be careful and humble and not to say like a new thing I just figured out, not in any sense, but something we're all always free to try to join into.
It's so helpful to hear, though, how you've found these threads and sort of brought them into awareness and action and the ways they come together. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
You sort of answered this, but let me see if there's anything you want to add. Um, is there any kind of additional practice or quote or guiding principle that's just sort of your anchor that, it's something you can come back to over and over, given how large all of this is and the disruptions that can happen in our practices?
Yeah, I actually thought of 2 things, and I think so far, in my answers to your questions, I may be coming across as though I've found some systems and they're working great, and I do the work that reconnects, and I grow strawberries, and I work with complexity, but, I'm human, and these are enraging, terrifying, grief-filled days, and I'm often really impatient. It's the other thing, 'cause um, it's because of the nature of my work, I understand that every day is a loss if we don't turn the ship of species and possibilities, so I get impatient. And with that impatience, I have 2 quotes that hang near my desk. One is from Wendell Berry, the writer from Kentucky, and he was once asked something about what young people should do, and he said, "Well, you're in an emergency, but you're in the kind of emergency that requires patience. And being patient in an emergency," Wendell Berry says, "is a terrible trial." And because the things that my colleagues and I promote as solutions involve, as we've been talking about, mutuality, weaving networks of connection, that's slow work, right? It's care work. It moves at the speed of trust. So you have to be patient while times are desperate. And whenever I don't want to do that, there's Wendell Berry on one side of my desk. On the other side of my desk is Grace Lee Boggs, the civil and human rights activist and leader from Detroit. And she once said, this won't be perfect, but given the exquisite nature of our interconnection, it's never a matter of critical mass. It's always a matter of critical connection. Um, and so that just reminds me, maybe we don't have enough numbers, maybe we don't, but think of every day how connections are being woven. Uh, when people go to the UN and one of those massive climate conferences, when a neighborhood right now in Minneapolis comes together to take care of one another and the most marginal, those are critical connections. So Grace Lee Boggs reminds me the connections are what matters, not the numbers. And Wendell reminds me to try to find grace with that patient emergency kind of feeling, or patience in emergency.
Beautiful. Well, before we close, is there anything else on your heart, on your mind that you'd like to share?
I would share something because it's been lifting my spirits a lot lately. Um, my colleagues and I are about to launch a new project that we call Seeds for the Future. And we define a seed for the future as when people work together in these patterns of connection and mutuality to meet an emergency. So, an example of one, we read about a beloved used bookstore in California that was flooded in a climate related storm and was going to close. And 5 young people got together and crowd-funded, a way to reopen it, but they restructured it as a worker-owned nonprofit bookstore. So you see 2 things at once, right? Responding to an emergency, but building a new structure, a new way of relating, and it's those ways of relating that are gonna carry us into the future. So that's why we call it a seed of the future. So our project is trying to understand what are those seeds, how better can they be nurtured and supported. Our funders are interested in how can funders, help with this emergence. So because we're working on so hard to launch this, I've just been seeing the seeds everywhere. And so I would just invite people to take that definition and just open your eyes. And most likely you're involved in the seed or many seeds. And it's just I would almost say thrilling to see how even in this dark time, or maybe because of this dark time, the ways that people are responding that are building the alternative while trying to mitigate the damage of the poly crisis. So that would be my ending thought is think what seed a seed for the future might be to you and look for them and see what you see.